Hi, this is Patti Smith, and you're listening to Mike Tamano.
Thank you. You're marvelous. You're marvelous. Thank you. I'm Murph, and these are the Magic Tones. Steve the Colonel Cropper, Donald Duck Dunn, Willie Two Big Hall, and Tom Bones Malone. We'll be back with the Magic Tones for the Armada Room's 2-hour disco swing party after this short break. Till then, don't you go changing.
Well, joining us today on the Mike Tamano Show is actor-musician Murphy Dunne, who has entertained us for years. And Murphy, of course, known for playing himself in the Blues Brothers, but so much more. Welcome to the program, Murphy.
Mike, great to be with you. How's the weather there?
You know, if you don't like it, wait a minute, right? That's pretty much it. You grew up in Chicago, so I want to kind of talk about, you know, how your Chicago upbringing shaped your career, and then about your initial move to the West Coast.
Sure. Well, I grew up on the near north side, kind of in the area around Rush Street, and it was my father's political bailiwick. And it was kind of a, you know, in the 50s it was kind of wild, and the early 60s it was kind of great. We lived on a street called Chestnut Street, around State Street between Rush and the Wabash area. And Holy Name Cathedral is where I was thinking the other day when I had to get up very early. My mom and I would go to church at Holy Name Cathedral. I was an altar boy, and in Latin. And I'm just reminding about, you know, if you say Mass as an altar boy, you had to get up, you know, at 5 o'clock and walk to church in that weather and say Mass. And I'll tell you, I don't think they do it that way anymore.
I wonder if the kids in Catholic school are still learning Latin. Remember, because that was the big thing because I had the last name Tamano, and going to Catholic school, I went to St. Rita on the far south side.
Oh, sure.
And I remember, like, you would just sign up for a language. They didn't tell you what language. So everybody wanted to get Spanish because that was A, applicable, and B, it wasn't that hard to learn. And then the last thing you wanted to get was Latin, but the almost as bad was French. And of course, because I was a T, they just went down the list. I got French, so I escaped the Latin. But I remember seeing the kids that would get Latin, and they looked like, you know, they had lost all hope.
Terrible. I took the Lake Street L and went out to Fenwick.
Okay.
And had to have 2 years. We had to have 4 years of a language, so I had 2 years of Spanish and 2 years of Latin. And as most of your listeners know, Latin is a dead language.
Yeah. There's
not a lot of conversing in Latin. you know, hey, how are you, Sam? And try to translate that. You know, it doesn't happen. But Spanish, a friend of mine was a terrific artist, and when he was a high school graduate, he was the #1 artist in America. So he got the chance to go to the White House and meet Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton said, "I've got a little advice for you. Learn Spanish."
There you go.
It really comes in handy. So I'm glad I kept it up. And you know, in Southern California, it'll soon be the preferred language of everyone, I think.
And Latin is not something, I think, when they ask you on a job application, you know, are you bilingual? They're not expecting Latin.
They're not expecting Latin. I think if you wanted to become a pharmacist, it might be a good language for you to study, because there's a lot of the root words come from Latin and Spanish as well, obviously.
So it might enhance the job, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What was St. Rita's like for you?
It was okay. It was well, actually, I don't have a lot of love for those years, other than, you know, the friendship. I was a class clown, and I was like a social butterfly back then. I kind of fit into every group. I could hang with the jocks, I could hang with the goofballs and the nerds, and so I had kind of a John Hughesian, if you will, high school.
Great.
Yeah, and at the same time, I was working at a concert promoter in Chicago, so it was almost a Ferris Bueller type situation. Didn't
Ray Manzarek go to St. Rita?
Yeah, he was a 1957 graduate of St. Rita. Ray Manzarek of the Doors. Yeah,
right. And I think there's another. Isn't Didn't Ed Farmer go to St. Rita's?
I believe he did.
Farmer?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
The broadcaster, the color guy
Yes,
for the White Sox.
for the White Sox, yeah.
Right, he's a good man.
Yeah.
He's a good buddy of mine. And he always brags about it. He said, yeah, the Fenwick stinks.
Yeah. Well, there's always been a rivalry. Yeah, see? That's why they've been known to have great sport teams, you know.
Absolutely.
So now, when you were in Chicago, you became a member of the Conception Corporation comedy troupe, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that because that group kind of was in the same vein as Firesign Theater and some of the more surreal groups that came out of that time. Tell us about that experience.
Well, two fellows, a guy named Howard Arcone, Oliver Sholem, which means Requies Cotton Panche in Latin. He and another second citizen named Ira Miller, who's also deceased, and I started writing, funny stuff that we could put on an album and sell. And I had this electric harpsichord that I really liked, and we in a sense traded the electric harpsichord at a recording studio called Paragon for the album. He just basically said, I really like the harpsichord. I'll trade you an album if you could come here and record it. And we loved doing it, and we had a great time. The fellow who handled the business end of the Conception Corporation, Jeff Began, he found a way to sell it eventually to Atlantic Records because it was, we would have taken a dime, a penny, a shekel, a sou, a farthing, anything to get it out there. And it worked, and then we had modest sales, and the format on radio at the time allowed you to put in little interstitials. So, we could put in something like the Acme artificial limb commercial, like go to Acme if you can't get ahead. It won't cost you an arm and a leg, and we'll never give you the finger. Really stupid stuff like that. Because in the time, in the period when you could play records from albums, you could have long solos and all of that. That's all changed. But there was a niche that we filled, and it worked great. We did a total of 3 albums with Atlantic.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun.
And you also had the chance to work with, now here's a guy whose name doesn't come up that often. He's kind of a footnote and all but forgotten outside of, deep comedy circles, but the great Severin Darden. Every time I think about him, I crack up. One time we were writing the screenplay with the guys in the Concorp and with Severin. And Severin, his wife suggested that he go out and get some food for us, and so we could have a meal while we were writing. And he said, well, what'll I get? And she said, get whatever looks good. And he came back with $17 worth of sponges. Well, they looked good, he said. They looked really good, and that's... he's very expensive. He still has. There's still an album. You can find some of his albums. He had an album called The Metaphysics Lecture. Yes.
Which was brilliant. And he was at the time of Mike Nichols and Elaine May, and everyone hands down referred to Severin as the true genius.
Yeah, he certainly was.
He truly was, and he was also famous for kind of pranks. They wouldn't let him into the Playboy Club because he didn't have a tie. This is before it was just membership only. So he went back to University of Chicago and got his Rolls Royce and a cape and a top hat, and he drove back to, I think, was it on Del? I'm trying to remember what street. Walton. It might have been Walton.
Yeah, right off of Michigan Avenue there, huh?
Right. You got a better memory than me. And they took his rolls and said, right this way, and they tried to take his hat. He wouldn't give it up, or the cape, and they found a table for him because they were duly impressed, and he took the hat off and the cape, and he was naked.
So this was like life as performance. That's how Severin lived,
That's exactly the way it was. There's a great chapel. I guess it's a Goldberg Chapel. I don't know, at the University of Chicago. And he broke in there one night, and he was an organ player. And he broke in, and he started playing the organ. And the University of Chicago security police came in and attempted, to remove. They started yelling, "Stop, stop!" And he ran up on the altar and yelled, "Sanctuary, sanctuary."
It says a lot about the mind behind these things, because you're just sitting one day and say, what should I, you know what I need to do today? I need to get naked under a cape and top hat and drive a Rolls Royce to get into the Playboy Club.
Yeah.
That's just beautiful. There was a sense of anarchy in the times, of fun anarchy, of just breaking all the rules, of seeing what we could do to make life enriched and special. And I think you miss that in artists these days. There's artists getting in trouble, but they're not being creative.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And there was a thing. If memory serves, there was this kind of pact between the members of the first Second City troupe, that you could pretend to shoot one of the members, and they would have to fake a death scene, no matter where it was. And you can imagine those guys doing it to each other in public, on public transportation.
No matter what,
No matter what. And, of course, do it as bravely and as dramatically as possible.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, now, when you worked with Belushi and Aykroyd in the Blues Brothers, you were swept up into this cultural phenomenon, and that had to be such a rush and it had to be an adjustment for anybody who was part of that group.
It was just surreal in its lack of reality, because it's my hometown. I'm back in my hometown. I've always been a fan of the blues and really loved the band and the band members. Steve Cropper and Duck Dunn were people that I met when I was producing a free music show in Grant Park called Free R&B. Free Rhythm and Blues, and I just loved it. It was, the greatest rhythm section of all time.
Yeah.
And to hang with those guys and to be part of the inner circle with them, because the partying never stopped. John and Dan opened a bar across from Second City, and you could go in there, and it wasn't really a bar. It was a kind of a club or a hangout where you could go in, and they had this bogus way of trying to get reimbursed for the booze that everybody drank. You could buy a coupon, like for $1, and drink all night. You say, "Well, I'm not paying for anything. I bought a coupon just to confuse the police." Well, the police eventually shut it down.
Yeah, right.
Because it was bogus, But it was fun, and I'd heard stories about Dan Aykroyd going out to a dump and trying automatic weapons with the police, because he loved the police department. His father, was very high up in rank in the Canadian Mounties.
Yeah, the Mounties, right.
Yeah, and so I hear that at the time that the police loved to travel around with Dan at night, and he'd go out to the dumps and fire automatic weapons.
Oh, cool. How cool is that? Well, he was always a great eccentric, Dan Aykroyd, and I think...
Amazing.
I think he is. He's a brilliant guy, but he's also had things that interested him outside of fame, which I think John Belushi could have used a little bit of that sort of thing.
Well, I think he could. John was kind of like a Roman candle, and Danny was facility. Danny was also into, and still is, I think, into military accoutrement. He was into, weaponry. World, could tell you, what the Chinese are building in terms of tanks and what submarine class is available. And I heard that he wrote a book about extraterrestrials and flying saucers.
Yeah, well, he's heavily into that stuff, yeah.
But so much fun to be around. He loved to, I remember we were headed out to my dad's, and we went into this grocery store to get some victuals, and he went in the canine department and got some milk bones and started eating them on the way out. and he said, fine fiber. These are excellent for you. Would you like one? I said, Dan, I don't think so.
Excellent.
I'm holding off for it. Yeah, and the people, of course, were gobsmacked, just watching Dan. And of course, he was a huge celebrity at the time. And he would look, are you having a pleasant day? Thank you. It's a delight to be here. And then he'd be chewing on his milk bones. Have you tried? Would you like one? He'd offer one to the cashier. What a funny guy.
Now, what was Belushi like to work with? Was he hard to work with?
No, in terms of hard to work, no, he basically had more difficulty showing up and being ready to work as opposed to partying. He liked video partying and every aspect of it. He when he showed up and he was in good shape, he was a consummate pro and knew his lines and knew the character. And well, both those guys really had it down. I mean, they could just riff on being themselves, at any time to make it work. Johnny had a great heart. He was a little kind of a sympathetic, soft-hearted guy, and he wore his heart on his sleeve. And you could be out eating with John, and it was a Chinese restaurant, across from Second City, I think it was, maybe Japanese. And we'd go there and have a couple of beers before a show at Second City, and somebody come over his autograph, and he'd say, no, sit down. Is this your girlfriend? Hey, I'm John. Come on, you want a beer? Come on. So what are you guys doing? You hanging out? What's going on? And they were like, how do I act? And he was just a regular guy in that regard.
Yeah, that's that Chicago connection, I think. That sit down and have a beer kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's, of course, the cast of Blues Brothers. You have John Candy and Henry Gibson and all these.
It was great fun, and as John Landis told me, John Belushi had mentioned to John Landis, he said, this guy, and this was at a time when from John Candy's career wasn't really happening, so much. So he said, hire John Candy, come on, John, hire him. And this is Landis talking. He said, I hired him, and now I couldn't afford him. John Candy's stars started to accelerate, and he became very popular. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, that was wonderful. I mean, all the movies he did were great.
He was a really great actor, yes, a lot of fun.
He was a lot of fun. Great to hang out. I was doing a movie with him called Going Berserk that David Steinberg, another second citizen, directed. And I had a nice scene with him where I played the public defender, and I was defending John, and John said to me, he said, now, do they have a big trailer for you? I said, I don't need a big trailer. I just need a little, a place to change. He said, no. You're my friend. You're an important person. Just take off. So you should have a trailer. I said, well, thank you for thinking of me, and I you for that, but I only need a little. No, you should have.
You need a bigger trailer. I'm telling you.
You need I'm going to get it. It's my trailer. I said, I don't need to use your trailer. But you have to have one because, you're a star, and
it's
funny guy.
Well, we're talking to Murphy Dunne, a very prolific artist, both music and acting. You've been in so many things, and you're staying busy. I want to just, as an aside here, what advice do you give to someone who wants to make a living in the entertainment field?
Well, luck is obviously an important thing. I remember, and thank you for your kind words, Paul Newman was once asked why he wasn't so impressed with his fame, and he said that because he knows other actors who are better than he is, and they're not working. But, of course, it doesn't hurt to look like Paul Newman.
Right.
But I've been very fortunate. I kind of, because I could play the piano a little bit, was in the right place at the right time, and did some movies and wrote some music for a couple, and had fun. And I kind of was the go-to guy. I remember doing a Frasier, and they just said, "No, we'll offer you the part. Just come on in." And that's how lucky I was, So I would suggest and remark that if you can do anything, work on it, and especially in the field of music, if you could write songs or do impressions, work on dialects, all those things are pluses for any actor, and if you can do that, then you got a shot. I wouldn't go into the business because you wanted to make money.
Yeah, right. You got to love the work. You got to love the work.
You have to love the work and have fun doing it and take every job that's offered to you.
An interesting part of your history was your roommate being Peter Boyle. That had to be exciting.
Every time he'd come to L.A., he'd call me up and ask if he could crash at my house, and I was pleasantly surprised and happy about that. Yeah, he's a very funny guy. And there was a couple of different periods. There was Peter when he was kind of a wild and crazy guy, when alcohol, was a prime mover in his life. And then after that, he told me, I remember him telling me that the greatest gift in the world you can give to the world is a sober Irishman. And that's when he married and had a family, and he was even more successful. But he was a wonderful guy, and he introduced me to Mel Brooks. And Pete was kind of a crazy guy, and he'd wake you up in the morning, you're sleeping, and then he'd nudge you, and then he'd be over you, and you'd look up, and there's Peter Boyle with a butcher's knife in his hand. Just for laughs,
Just waking you up with a butcher knife, get you going.
Yeah.
And he introduced you to Mel Brooks, right?
Yeah, he was doing. Well, I knew Mel from Silent Movie. I had a small part, and then I got a chance to meet Marty Feldman, who was a crazy guy. But he said, "Do you want to come down?" And to the set, he was doing Young Frankenstein. And I said, "Sure, I'd love to." So went down there, and we were outside the sound stage, and Pete had been there earlier because he had so much makeup to put on. And this was when he turned into being a very sober, businesslike. Well, he was always a businesslike actor. And his father was an actor. In fact, Pete had annually, I can't remember what his father's first name was, but he always took an ad out in the trades in memoriam of his dad, who was an actor. But Pete was standing outside with me, and here comes Mel, and Pete says, Pete, I said, Mel, this is my friend Murphy Dunne. Murphy Dunne? That's like Isaac Cohen. You have two last names. What's wrong with you? Forget about the Irish. Come on inside. Show you how to make a movie. Come on. Stick with the Jews. Come here. Come here. Let's go make a movie. Yeah, he's always been funny. I saw him recently. He's still, as he describes himself, he still has his peppy ways.
Okay, yeah. He's definitely a fireball. And you auditioned, you kind of played with him. You played the piano while you were auditioning, right? Oh, right, in High Anxiety, right. Yeah. I almost forgot about. Yeah, I was sent in to see him go to 20th Century Fox, and he said, "Come here, sit. We know you're good. We know you're funny. Come on, sit on the sectional, the divan, the couch, that thing over there. Good. Sit there. Now, I wrote the song and with Johnny Morris, and I sing the song, and you sit on the couch and pretend to play." I said, "Okay, go ahead." And he goes, "High anxiety," and I mimed an arpeggio. He said, "You got the joke? You knew exactly where the arpeggio goes. You got to give your sizes outside. We'll see on the set. It's wonderful. It's done." And I said, "Mel, I've got more. Good. Keep singing." I said, "Madeline Kahn's here?" He said, yeah. So it's useless to say anxiety. And I look at where Madeline's supposed to be. Who is this guy? He's brilliant. He's better than Sinatra. And Mel goes, "It's funny, forget it. It's my scene, not yours." And he was just, he's so much fun to be around. He can make, any normal day just like riding a roller coaster. Yeah, and he seems like he's got such a beautiful heart, and he really wants people to be happy around him. You never hear any mean stories about Mel Brooks, No. So as a matter of fact, when we were doing that, one of the actors was having a hard time with his lines, and it turned to Barry Levinson, who was one of the writers of High Anxiety, and he said he's having a hard time with it. Yeah, he says he can't get the joke right. And but Mel knows, he's smart enough to know that if he pressures him, it's going to get worse. So we're trying to make him relax, trying to make an actor relax. And if it is a stressful, pressure-filled situation when you're,
when about 50 people are depending upon every one of your words, and the light man is quiet, and the sound man is quiet.
Tell us about the enzymes with the active ingredients.
Well, we're a bunch of lunatics. The guys are very experienced in what they do, and we have, it's just really a fun group of people who do music that is lyrically based. Like you take, I'll just give you a verse. I'm sitting on a cactus couch, shooting craps with Chewbacca, who ain't no slouch. When in walks the barber of Seville, I said, take a little off the top and tape it to your windowsill. So it's a little surreal.
Yeah.
It's a little crazy, and it's lyrically based on. And I was speaking of lyrical. I read something the other day that was kind of interesting. It was Federico Fellini was talking about his life, and the famous Italian surrealistic director, and Fellini said that his mother wanted him to be a bishop, his father wanted him to be an engineer, but he is content to be just an adjective.
Fellini-esque, yes.
Fellini-esque.
Everybody likes. And you talk about the different styles of directors. I once read an interview with Woody Allen where he was talking about how he likes calm on the set, and Fellini could only work with chaos surrounding him on the set.
Right. It's weird that there are many different kinds of directors, and there's a guy named Howard Koch who was a fabulous fellow. I worked at Paramount with him once, and he told me that he felt as if, actually, Howard was one of the writers of, I think, The Maltese Falcon. He said that to be a director, you have to be a little crazy.
Yeah.
And I think you do, and you have to know when to be crazy, when not to be crazy, and so many personalities you have to juggle, and so many egos, and this town is filled with egos.
Oh yeah. And weirdos, but that's okay. That's what makes it. So how can people get the music for the enzymes with the active ingredients? Is it on iTunes?
you can go to CD Baby.
Okay.
And preview any of the tunes. We've got some of the tunes that are mine just don't make the cut. I've got one called "Will You Think of Me When You're Under Him," which is kind of a country song.
Nice.
And the guys go, "Oh no, this is for not that audience, Murphy."
That's for the live show, right? The Vegas show.
That's for the live show. Yeah, it does work on a live show because people like to laugh.
Yeah. And, of course, your daughter proves that the talented apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Tell us about what your daughter's up to.
My daughter, Veronica Dunne, is the co-star of a new Disney series called Casey Undercover. And there's a Disney star named Zendaya. The cast is all African-American except my daughter, so I'm happy to say she stands out.
There you go, yeah.
She's the only honky on the show.
She's the token honky. I like it.
She's the token honky. They're shooting a total of 26 for this season. 3 have aired. There'll be another one. It's on the Disney Channel Sunday nights at 8:30.
Great start for your career. And like Peter Boyle, when I get to L.A., I'll just ring you up and stay at your house.
Wait a minute. Okay.
It's a pleasure, Murphy, and you stay well, and wish our best to your daughter Veronica and your family, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Yours as well. Thanks, Michael. God bless.